Om Namah Pranavartaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prasantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Arunagiri Mupetam Sachidananda Murtim Ramana Iti Prithivyam Vishrutam Jnana Suryam Gahana Hridaya Vidyam Lilaya Bodhayantam Satatam Aham Ameyam Sadgurum Samsmarami Aham Swarupena Samasta Jantor Vibhantam Antarbibhum Aprameyam Gurum Gurunam Ajam Adidevam Vandamahe Shri Ramanam Dayabdhim. My pranams. We are delighted to be here, to be with you again. It's a great feeling. When I mentioned to Sunita ji that we would be visiting the US, then she suggested that I could take up some serious text. So what came to my mind at that time was that maybe I would take up Devi Kalottaram, Jnanachara Vichara Patalam. And coincidentally today, just this morning, when I was just thinking about it, I got a mail from somebody with the Devi Kalottaram text. He didn't know about my visit here and all that. So I thought it was a very good signal. As it always happens, with Bhagavan's grace. There are about 85 shlokas in this text. It may not be possible to cover all of them during my stay here. What I would do is I would take up from very important verses which are useful for sadhana, and I will cover them as much as possible. And if opportunity arrives, then maybe we could continue that in a different manner later on. Devi Kalottaram comes under an Agamam, the Upa Agamam. Agamas are not exactly branches of the Vedas, but they are total alignment with the Vedas. The very name suggests Agamas are traditions handed down for the future. Agamam is something that has to come in the future. Certain traditions have been handed down. And there are a number of Agamas. They are divided into three categories: the Shaiva Agamas, the Vaishnava Agamas, and the Shakta Agamas. Shakta Agamas are more popular because they are also known as the Tantra Shastra. So when you talk about the Kashmiri Tantric or the Tibetan Tantric methodology of meditation, one can find links to this, some of the Agamas here. There is a story behind how this came to be composed. There is an interesting incident. Always Bhagavan composed things when somebody prompted. On his own, he did not do anything. It so happened that when he was in the Virupaksha cave, 1916, 17, around that time, a person by name Ramalingam, he was the son of the priest in Arunachala temple. This Ramalingam visited Bhagavan with a few palm leaf manuscripts, showed it to Bhagavan. I found this in my house. I do not know what they are. I'm not able to make out what these are. Bhagavan looked at it. It was in a Grantha Lipi. I don't know whether you know about Grantham. The Grantham script is actually a combination of the Tamil script and the Sanskrit script. It was an intermediate script that was very much in prevalence till about 50, 60 years back. Bhagavan also knew Grantham. So he went through the whole thing. And to his great surprise, he found that two texts were Advaita Param, Purna Advaita, non-dual philosophy. He was surprised because Agamas are basically those things that are created for the worship of Brahman with attributes, which we call as a Saguna Upasana, Sarguna Brahma Upasana. So if you can see, most of the Agamas they all deal with how to do worship of the Lord, various lords, various gods, and the way in which the statues, the murtis have to be created, how they have to be installed, how should the temple be like, what are all the characteristics of the temple, and the various worshipping methods from the morning till the evening, and so on. All about those worshipping aspects of Saguna Brahman. So in that ocean of Saguna Brahma Upasana, he was surprised to find these texts which were so totally Purna Advaitam. He was very impressed by that. So he went through the thing and then he gave it back to him. So one portion of the story ends here. A few months later, another scholar came to visit Bhagavan in Virupaksha cave. His name was Yajna Rama Dikshitar. I'm telling all this from Kanakammal's account. She has so beautifully recorded all these things. So Yajna Rama Dikshitar came to visit Bhagavan in Virupaksha cave. And one of those days when he was staying there, he happened to mention to Bhagavan, there is a person in Tanjore who is collecting, Tanjavur, who is collecting a lot of Agama texts because we are creating a library. Maybe he was talking about the Saraswati Mahal library, which was started by the Sarfoji Maharaja. And during this time, all the palm leaf manuscripts were covered, collected, and then preserved in that place. Maybe that. So he said that one Kupuswami Raja has asked me to find out whether there are any Agama texts that are available because this is going to be very useful. We have to preserve them for the future. Bhagavan immediately remembered his chance meeting with Ramalingam. So he told him, yeah, there is a person here. He brought some manuscripts from Briddhachalam. He must be somewhere around. Go find out from him whether he still has them. So this Yajna Rama Dikshitar was able to contact Ramalingam, and he was able to also collect these manuscripts. He wanted to verify whether they were the same manuscripts that Bhagavan had seen, so brought it back to Virupaksha cave and then showed it to Bhagavan once again. Bhagavan said, yes, these are the same. Then that person started copying some of these texts. Maybe he wanted to preserve a copy also. In front of Bhagavan, he sat down and then started copying all these texts. It seems Bhagavan got a thought, why should we be idle? Let me also do something. So he came down, sat next to him. And then he also started copying this Grantha script into beautiful Devanagari script. It is like print. Ashrama has printed that. Print. What was not possible for him. So he started copying them. And two texts were there. One is known as Devi Kalottaram. It is from an Agama known as Jnanachara Vichara Patalam. Devi Kalottaram is the Agamam, and the portion was known as Jnanachara Vichara Patalam. Jnana Achara Vicharam. The path to Jnanam and all about it. There was another text by name Atma Sakshatkaram. It is from another Agamam known as Sarva Jnanottaram. That was the name of the Agamam. So these two texts were available. At that time, he copied Devi Kalottaram. This Jnanachara Vichara Patalam. He gave those papers to an attendant of his to keep them. So another portion of the story ends here. A few months later again, he was actually composing a poem on some subject, and he suddenly remembered a similar topic was covered in Jnanachara Vichara. So he called his attendant and, please give me those papers which I gave it to you some time back, a few months earlier. He searched for it, but somehow they had lost it. That manuscript was totally, whatever Bhagavan had written had completely been lost. Bhagavan kept quiet. He did not do anything. But the next day morning, I believe, the first slokam of the Devi Kalottaram appeared in his mind's eye. Just appeared. When I say mind's eye, it is a non-existent mind. We cannot understand what it is. it appeared before him. He immediately translated into a Tamil verse. And one after the other, he says, Bhagavan says, one after the other, in the same sequence, these verses appeared before him and he put them down in Tamil verses, beautiful Tamil verses. We cannot believe these things. Several months earlier, he had just copied it. The Jnani's mind is a very pure mind. It is like a clean slate, not like ours. So much of garbage we put into it, we forget what happens in our lives. It was totally possible for a Jnani. When I'm talking about it, I'm reminded of another story that Kanchi Paramacharya once related about in Adi Shankara's life. So I will just deviate a little bit. It's an interesting story again. We all know that Adi Shankara had four main principal disciples: Padmapada, Hastamalaka, Totakacharya, and Sureshwaracharya. Sureshwaracharya's earlier name was Mandana Mishra. He was a Purva Mimamsika, all the time engaged in the Karma Kandam of the Vedas, the ritualistic portion. But after meeting Adi Shankara, he converted into the Advaita Shastram and he became his disciple and took on the name Sureshwaracharya. Padmapada was the earliest of disciples. Padmapada was, before he met Adi Shankara, he was a Vaishnava, a worshipper of Vishnu, actually a Narasimha Upasaka. There is a story in Adi Shankara's life when Adi Shankara is meditating, a Kapalika, a person who were worshippers of a very cruel form of Shiva. They are known as Kapalikas. They have skulls as their garland and so on. They are involved in human sacrifice. And he saw this yogi meditating and, oh, this is going to be a very good sacrifice to Lord. So he wanted to chop off the head of Adi Shankara. At that time, it seems Padmapada was nearby. And then he saw what was about to happen and immediately uttered this mantra, the Narasimha mantra that he was familiar with and he was chanting before he came to Adi Shankara. And immediately, I believe Narasimha Swami appeared on the scene, and then he finished off the Kapalika. And throughout the whole thing, Adi Shankara was not aware of what went on. Only when he came to the normal consciousness, he found that there was the death of a Kapalika. He asked Padmapada, what happened? Then he mentioned this. Oh, you have got the Narasimha Mantram Upadesham done to you. Very good, he said. Why I am saying all this is he was a Parama Vaishnava before he came to Adi Shankara. But in those days, it was not called as Vaishnavism. That came later. Ramanujacharya gave full shape to Visishtadvaitam, which is later came to be known as the Vaishnava religion. And that was 4 or 5 centuries later. But during that time, they were all known as following the sect called as Pancharatram. I don't know whether any of you are familiar with this. Pancharatram. There are 2 Agamas which define the Vishnu worship. One is known as Pancharatram, other one is known as Vaikanasam. Even today in Panchangam, you will find mention about Pancharatram and Vaikanasam and certain dates which are significant for these 2 sects. That apart, it was known as Pancharatram. So Padmapada wanted to go on a pilgrimage to the south, and he requested Adi Shankara to give permission so that he could take his pilgrimage. He came to his uncle's place in Sri Rangam in Tamil Nadu. His uncle was a very, very extreme Vaishnava, person who was totally dedicated to Vaishnavism and was not prepared to accept any other form of worship. And what happened to Padmapada was he had started writing a commentary on Adi Shankara's Brahma Sutra Bhashyam, the great commentary that Adi Shankara had made on Vyasa's Brahma Sutras. They are known as Bhashyam. And he was writing a commentary on that commentary. But it was not complete. About 5 chapters he had completed. And before going on the pilgrimage, he told Adi Shankara that I have started writing this. Oh, is that so? Then why don't you just, read out to me whatever you have composed so far? So he read out those 5 chapters. And then he said, I am going to complete the rest of the things during my pilgrimage. He took the manuscripts with him and came to Sri Rangam. And his uncle was seeing him writing something. He asked, what is it you're writing? He showed the book. This is, my guru had taught me this, and I want to give a commentary on whatever he did. And then when the uncle read that, he knew this was totally different from what he was, brought up with, the ideas about Shri Vaishnavism. It took shape later on, but the initial seeds were there already. He is so interesting. Why don't you leave these manuscripts with me? He said. The uncle said. Padmapada said yes. And then he continued with his pilgrimage. I said, I will come back in a few weeks' time. And then I will collect it and then go back again. When he went out, this person had a very strange thought. If this is allowed to survive, there will be no Vaishnavism in future. Our type of philosophy. Visishtadvaitam, Dvaitam, Visishtadvaitam, Advaitam. And there was a period when there were a lot of, arguments and fights and conflicts between these 3 sects. Advaitam does not believe in anything less than a total merger of the Jiva with the Brahman. In its essence, Bhagavan says this, in its essence, the Jiva is no different from the Brahman, the ultimate. There cannot be any other thing. There is only one thing. That's why it is known as Advaita. Visishtadvaitans, they believe that the Jiva merges with the Brahman, the Supreme Being, but remains as a part of the Supreme Being. It cannot become one. It cannot be a complete merger, complete dissolution of the Jiva, but he remains as a part of the whole. It is known as an Amsham. You become an Amsham. Amsham is a part. And the Lord is known as Amshi. He is the one who absorbs all these parts. Advaita does not acknowledge of any parts of any kind whatsoever. That is the thing. And the Dvaita says that Jiva and the Lord, they are all always different. There is absolutely no method of one becoming a part or one merging with it all. That is just impossible. That is their feeling. Many times people wonder about this divisions of Advaita, Visishtadvaita, and the Dvaita. There is a beautiful verse in Adhyatma Ramayanam where Hanuman talks about these 3 divisions. Once it seems Rama asked Hanuman, how do you look on me? When you look on me, Hanuman, how do you look on me? What do you think? So Hanuman's answer, in a very crisp manner, describes all these 3 divisions. He says, Deha Buddhya Tava Dasoham. When I identify with the body, I become your servant. And that's what the Dvaitam says. Dvaitam says, you are always a servant to the Lord. You can never be one with him at any time. You're always a servant. So do service to him. That is what the Dvaita philosophy says. Deha Buddhya Tava Dasoham. Jiva Buddhya tu Tad Tava Damshoham. I am your Amsha. Tad Amshakaha. I am your Amsha, your part. When I look on myself as a Jiva, Atma Buddhya, but when I really examine myself and understand myself to be the Atman, the essence of everything, Atma Buddhya, Tvamevaham, I am you. So he has described Advaitam, Visishtadvaitam, and Advaitam in a very crisp sloka. And then this forms a basis for some of us to understand what the differences are, what people are fighting about. Anyway, the uncle had a very strange thought. If this manuscript is allowed to survive, then whatever we have been brought up to believe will completely go away. So with this, that Tivra Bhavam, that extreme attachment to his own religion, he thought of a plan to destroy the manuscript. Whatever Padmapada had written as a commentary on Adi Shankara's commentary, he wanted to destroy it. But he cannot destroy it just like that, because his nephew is going to come after a few weeks and going to ask him about the manuscript. And he does not want to say, no, I don't like your manuscript, so I destroyed it. So he went to the extent of putting fire to his own house. He burnt up his house along with the manuscript and then went away from that place. A few weeks later, all this is a story given by Kanchi Paramacharya. Beautiful story in Devatinkuram. After a few weeks, Padmapada returned, and he found there was no house of his uncle. He was shocked. He asked people around, and they said there was a fire and the house got burnt. Everything in the house got burnt. And your uncle has left. We don't know where he has gone. He was not able to trace his uncle. So with a very heavy heart, he returned back to Adi Shankara and told him what all happened. So it seems Shankara told him, don't mind, never mind. I remember whatever you told me before you went, you were ready out to, I remember everything. And it seems, he said, now I will say whatever you have told me, you can write it down. He did not remember, the writer did not remember, but he remembered verse after verse, just as Bhagavan did now, this time. So it seems that's how the commentary, a portion of the commentary of Padmapada has survived today. It is called as Panchapadika because it has got 5 chapters. Panchapadika, not to be confused with the Panchadashi, which is written by Vidyaranya Swami, again a great Advaitic Grantha. This is Panchapadika, one of the most beautiful commentaries on Shankara Bhashyam. So Bhagavan could remember everything. So without looking at the source material, he translated. And as you go along and you see the thing, how accurate, absolutely accurate the translations. They're all done from his mind, the non-existing mind, and not by looking at anything. So this Jnanachara Vichara Patalam is considered to be one of the most pristinely pure Advaita Grantham. So much so that a great Advaitin, about 200, 300 years before Bhagavan, who wrote Olivil Odukam, a person named Kannudaya Vallalar, he had a good, great Sanskrit knowledge also. He had seen this Devi Kalottaram and he had commented on that. And this is how the Paayiram also begins, with this particular verse of Kannudaya Vallalar. I will just begin with that. Of course, there are 2 verses that Muruganar has written about the Devi Kalottaram and Bhagavan, and he praises Bhagavan. So this Kannudaya Vallalar's verse is this: Ariya Vakkayin Manida Vakkaye Yakkai Viriyu Nonbinil Uyirgola Viradame Viradam Rudil Devadang Kannudal Devame Devam Tiriyil Devika Alottara Tetrame Tetram. He says, the greatest, the rarest thing that can happen to one is to be born as a human being. Embodiment as a human being. Yakkai means a body in Tamil. The embodiment as a human being is the rarest of rare things. It does not happen ordinarily. Adi Shankara says the same thing in Viveka Chudamani, as you may know. Adi Shankara says, Durlabham Trayame Vaitat. This is very Durlabham. It is very, very rare. What are the 3 things? Trayame Vaitat. Daiva Anugraha Hetukam. It comes only by God's grace, not by anything else. These 3 things together. Manushyatvam, to be born as a human being. Mumukshutvam, to the desire to liberate oneself, the desire to get salvation. It's another rare thing to happen. And the third rare thing, Mahapurusha Samshraya. To be in association with a Mahapurusha, to come to know about somebody, to take somebody, a Mahapurusha, as one's guru. This again, the rarest of things. So all of us have hit a jackpot. This is what we should remember, and this opportunity is not going to come again. We should make use of this life for that ultimate, realizing that ultimate goal. So here he says, this Mahapurusha Samshrayam, the rarest of the rare things, and here also he says the same thing. Ariya Vakkayan Manida Yakaye Yakai. Viriyu Nonbinil Uyirkola Viradame Viradam. The greatest of religious austerity or a vow would be not to kill anything. If you can follow this, that is the greatest of vow. Don't kill anything. Don't affect any killing also. Karudil, if you want to really take on somebody and you want to worship some god, then worship Shiva. He says, Kannudal Devame Devam. Why is this partiality to Shiva? Because Shiva has this particular weakness. Shiva, I believe, is pleased with any small thing that you do. In our legends, we find people, doing some tapas and then asking all kinds of crazy boons from Shiva, and Shiva would immediately give because he did not know how to say no to anything. So this is the greatest weakness we should make use of, he says. Karunil Devam, the greatest god is Shiva. He is known as Ashutoshi. One of the names of Shiva is Ashu is something very, very little, Alpam. And Toshi, he becomes very happy with that. Santosham comes from that word Toshi, Ashutoshi. In fact, in Bengal, this Ashutoshi is a very popular name. Ashutosh Mukherjee. There is a big highway named after him in Calcutta, I think. So, this, he says here, I say that the greatest of gods is Lord Shiva because you can really very easily please him. And then finally he says, Teriyal, if you want to really know or understand some script, this is the script, Devi Kalottaram. Teriyal, Devi Kalottara, Tetram, the kind of clarity that you get from Devi Kalottaram, you cannot get from anything else. This is the direct path, says Kannudaya Vallala. Because it does not talk about things like Kriya, Charya, and all the thing. No, this is what all the Yoga Margam, lot of processes there and other things. But he has condensed everything that has to be known in such a simple manner. Bhagavan, when he went through this script, he found the statements in this to be so totally in conformity with his own experience, he thought that this book has to be translated into Tamil. The Mangala slokam with which Bhagavan begins. These two slokas I will read in the Tamil because no Sanskrit equivalent is available. But the other slokas I will read out both the Sanskrit as well as the Tamil. Bhagavan begins this Jnanachara Vichara Patalam in this manner. Devan, Bhagavan's Mangala slokam for this Jnanachara Vichara. Devan Tiruvayal Devi Sevi Puhattum Devi Kalottaram Ter Jnanam Ma Vilayvam Ananda Van Amuda Amudamana Arul Adduvida Monakari Ahame Mun. Every Mangala slokam has its own beautiful special characteristic of whatever Bhagavan has composed. In fact, one can make a research paper on the Mangala slokams alone. His Mangala slokam on Ulladinarpade, on Viveka Chudamani, every one of them. Each one is a little different, but so beautifully done. Here he says, the last sentence we will take up. Mona Kari Ahame Mun. Let us meditate on that Kari, uses the word Kari, which is the great silent being. Kari in Tamil has got two meanings. One meaning is Sakshi, someone who witnesses. He is a Sarva Sakshi. The one that is residing in our heart is just a pure witnessing consciousness, nothing else. It does not know anything other than itself. It just, whatever happens is just an appearance, and it knows that there is no two. There is only one. So Kari means Sakshi, and Kari also means elephant. So he is referring to Ganesha in this without directly saying. So by this, he is covering both the Nirguna Brahman as well as the Saguna Brahman in a beautiful manner. He says, Mona Kari Ahame Mun. Ahame Mun means let us meditate in our heart on that Sarva Sakshi, that Lord Ganesha. And then the description about what Lord Ganesha is here in this. Ananda is blissful. Van Amudamana, Vanamudam, the bliss that is filling, all the celestials are filled with this bliss. Arul, the great, the gracious Lord. Advaita, Advita, the non-dual, pure consciousness, which is of the form of grace and which is of the form of great silence, bliss, all these things. This is going to be the result of reading Devi Kalottaram. That's what Bhagavan says. Ma Vilaivam, this is the result. What he says is the benefit of reading this, and he uses the word Vilaivu while describing this. Vilaivu is something that we use in relation to agriculture. A harvest. Vilaivu is a harvest. The great agricultural produce is what is known as Vilaivu, Vilaichal. A great amount of harvest has been obtained by me this time. So he uses a word to denote the benefit of reading Devi Kalottaram, and he uses this word Vilaivu. Vilaivu has to be obtained with great efforts, because the toughest of professions is agriculture. Even today, all over the world, one has to do so much. It does not come so easily. One has to till the ground, seed the ground, use the nutrients for the seeds to grow, pour water in it carefully, not too much, not too little, carefully. Keep on weeding out all the things that are going to affect the growth of this plant. So on and so forth, till the time the plants come out, so much of an effort is made. In Tamil, we'll call it as Vivasayam. Actually, it is actually a Sanskrit word. Vyavasayam is a Sanskrit word. In Bhagavad Gita, there is a shloka which says Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi, says Lord Krishna. Vyavasayam denotes that tough efforts one has to put in order to get this. And then so he is indicating by using this word that it is not something which is easy. You have got to make efforts to get this. Before Adi Shankara, it seems, passed away, he composed a set of poems which are called as Sopana Panchakam. It's also known as Sadhana Panchakam. In a very few verses, he tells his disciples, who are all very anxiously waiting near him with a lot of sadness, these are the things you have to do in a step-by-step manner. Vedo nityam adhiyatam. Read the Vedas. Taduditam karma svanushtiyatam. Do all the things that are given as instructions in these Vedas, all the karmas, everything you do. Teneshasya vidhiyatam. Use these karmas as arpanam to the Lord. Ishasya vidhiyatam. Teneshasya vidhiyatam. Apachitihi kamye manastajyatam. Don't go after desires. They are going to really put you in a trap. Apachitihi kamye manastajyatam. Papaugha pariduyatam. See that your mind is cleaned up of all the sins by constant practice. Bhavasuke dosho anusandhiyatam. In this world, keep on thinking about it. Is there any happiness in this world? This kind of a thought process should keep on going. I'm doing this. I'm going after this. Is it going to give me happiness? Is it going to be a permanent happiness? So find out what are the dosham, what are the shortcomings in seeking pleasures in this world. Dosho anusandhiyatam. Atmecha vyavasiyatam, he says. Atma icha vyavasiyatam. You should cultivate the desire. Cultivate is the word for vyavasayam also. You should cultivate carefully the desire, in an alert manner. Cultivate the desire for Atma Icha. So Bhagavan uses the same word, Ma Vilaivam, he says here. And what is the effect? He says, Devan Tiruvayal. Devan here is Mahadeva, Lord Shiva. Tiruvayal, through his sacred mouth. Devi Sevi Puhattum. He gave instructions to Devi. Sevi is ear. Puhattum. Puhattum is a word that we use in Tamil when we feed children. When we feed children, we paal puhattinal, we say. Why that word is used? Because it's not very easy to feed a child. He does not want to take any food. All of you know the kind of struggle one has to go through to make a baby eat something, take. She will do all kinds of things just to see that the baby somehow or the other eats something, keeps something in the stomach. So here that word means Mahadeva wanted to very impactfully register these instructions in the ears of the hearing. Will be a casual hearing. When you hear something, it can be very casual. You just listen to something and then you forget it later on. But puhattum, when we say, it is made to register in the mind. So Bhagavan uses this word. Look at all these great words, the choice of Bhagavan. Devan Tiruvayal Devi. Devi is Parvati Devi. Sevi puhattum. So he gave the instructions to his consort Parvati Devi. And this Devi Kalottaram, what resulted? This is Devi Kalottaram, this great Grantham. There, they'll used to understand fully, comprehensively understand this fully with the heart, not just the intellect, understand with the heart. He uses a word, ter jnanam. Whatever knowledge comes through these instructions is going to be resulting in a great harvest for you. And the result of that would be that state that Lord Ganesha is in all the time, looking at the whole thing as a Sarva Sakshi. This is what is going to happen. And so, this is a very important Grantham, says Bhagavan in this very first Mangala Shloka. I will take up the first Shloka. Time is there, I think. The Sanskrit of the first Shlokam is this. Sarveshamapi Muktyartam. This is an appeal made by Parvati Devi to Shiva. And the answer to this question is what we have as the Jnanachara Vicharam, all the 84 verses later on, are the instructions by Mahadeva to Devi Parvati. Sarveshamapi Muktyartam Mukti Margasya Darshanam Devesha Jnanam Acharam Kripaya Katayasvame. Devesha Katayasvame. Devesha, the Lord of all Lords. Please tell me this, she says. What does she want? Why does she want it? Sarveshamapi Muktyartam. She just represents all of us. She becomes the representative of all the human beings struggling to get over the suffering of this samsara. So she says, for the benefit of all beings, Sarvesham, not just human beings, for the benefit of all beings, Mahadeva, please tell me the margam for the release, for the salvation. Mukti margasya darshanam, in order to see that mukti margam, whatever is required, please tell me this. Prabho, katayasvame kripaya. Show your grace and tell us this, she says. And Bhagavan's translation, Anevarkum sarvesham. Anevarkume muktikaha, for the sake of mukti, muktyartam. A mukti dai uru marga kakshi. In order to get that, reach that state of salvation, whatever has to be given, in order to have a vision of that final release. Muktikaha kakshidanam anaya parajnanama acharame. Parajnana acharame. Acharam is the process by which one reaches that jnanam. The description of the jnanam is generally called as Vedantam, and the process to reach that is also known as Siddhantam. Siddhantam is the method, a process, an instruction manual. You read the instruction manual and you will go and then reach the thing. And first of all, the description of what is the final goal is given, and how to reach that goal is also given. So here he says, Jnanam acharame nadum yanakku. I am seeking that particular final goal. Un arulal, kripaya, un arulal, by your grace, Vanavar Isha, oh Lord of all lords, Lord of all the celestials and Lord of everybody. Please tell me this. Katayasvame. So this is the first shlokam. Devi is praying and appealing to Lord Shiva on our behalf, on behalf of every creation. please tell us the margam for this. So with this, Ishvara begins that. Maybe I will just have time of things. Ishvara Uvacha. Ishvara says this. Jnanacharo vararohe katayami tavadhuna pravishanti yato moksham jnanino dhvasta kalmasham. Dhvasta kalmasham. So Ishvara says, Jnanacharo, all the acharas which will lead you, all the disciplines, all the methods that you have to follow, I will tell you all that, which will make you reach that jnanam, paramajnanam, that wisdom of the self. I will give you all that. And he addresses Parvati Devi as Vararohe, oh damsel with a beautiful countenance, Vararohe, oh beautiful woman, I will tell you this. She says Ishvara, and he calls her Vararohe. Katayami tava adhuna. Adhuna means now itself. I don't want to wait, because the moment somebody has this desire for jnanam, which is a very rare desire to come, we want so many other things, but not jnanam. Is it not? So the moment somebody says, I want jnanam, immediately do that. It seems Bhagavan used to say all the time, this was the only instruction that he gave to all the attendants and others. If somebody wants to come and then see me at any time of the day or the night, you should allow them. I don't want anything else. They should be allowed to come and then see me. He did not talk to anybody, but this access to him, he was very particular to see that that access was never prohibited, never banned at any time. One of the most moving incidents was when Yechammal's sister, Tenammal, she also had a tragic life like her sister Yechammal. Tenammal's husband passed away. She was living in Tiruvannamalai along with his sister in a different place. Her husband passed away. She had a daughter. She married off that daughter. And that boy also passed away. She became a widow at a very young age. But then she had a very young baby also. That is, Tenammal's daughter had a baby. Tenammal's granddaughter is the one who has said this story, narrated this. And she was, made to bring up the young girl, young baby, after the passing away of her daughter. And making ends meet was so difficult at that time. Somehow she was managing. And most of the time she would leave the baby with Bhagavan. Bhagavan would take care of her, plait her hair, play with her. I believe he used to play hopscotch with her. And used to make, the sticks that are used for Kolatam, Dandiya. Sticks he used to make for her. He took very good care of that. She would leave the baby with Bhagavan and then go away. Anyway, the daughter also passed away. Young daughter also passed away. That came as a rude shock to Tenammal. The body was there in her house. She ran to the ashram. It was dead of night. The night time, Tenammal ran to the ashram, went directly to Bhagavan, took hold of his feet and started crying. It seems Sarvadhikari was very upset with that. Because no, there is a dead body, her own daughter, and she is touching Bhagavan's feet. Even ordinarily touching Bhagavan's feet is prohibited. But she was touching at that condition. He was very upset, and then she started scolding Tenammal. Why are you doing this? At this hour, go back. Take care of the other things. Don't touch him. Seems Bhagavan looked at him, at his brother, and then said, if this happened to you, would you say the same thing? What is she doing? She is just expressing her grief. What is wrong with that? That was even at any condition, at all times, Bhagavan's only one request was, allow people to come to me. Allow people to come and have. a darshan of me. In their lives, what kind of an effect it will have, we have no way of saying this. So that's what he used to say. So he says, Adhuna, I will tell you now itself. Don't wait for any future time. I will tell you now itself. Pravishanti yato moksham jnanino dhvasta kalmasham. I will tell you how jnanis, they reach the final abode, their final goal. Dhvasta kalmasham, this is an adjective for jnanam. Dhvasta kalmasham, a state which has got no blemish at all. There is nothing, nothing of a shortcoming can be mentioned about the state, full of bliss, full of a state where one doesn't have to do anything and one is eating bliss all the time. That particular thing I will tell you, there is no kalmasham in this state. I will tell you that. Bhagavan's translation is, Yadinal Jnaniyarhal Yador Kalangamum il Dhvasta Kalmasham, he says. Kalangamum il Odariya Muktidanai. Odariya, the one which has got no blemish at all. Odariya Muktidanai Uttidoar. How they reach that state, that path I will tell you, he says. Madarase Vararohe. Madarase, oh queen of all ladies, queen of all women. Madarase Jnana Acharangan. Unakku Indru Uraipen. Adhuna Indru Uraipen. I will tell you now. Jnanamura Yavarume Nangu. So that everybody, all the people, you have prayed for all the people, all of them will benefit by this particular text, says Bhagavan, says Ishvara. With this, we will end today's this thing. Thank you.